is around. If you're fortunate enough to be a parent or indeed a grandparent, you will know that nothing is more important than your child or your children and their health and their education. And there is an announcement from the government concerning all of the above. Let's turn to Conservative MP Education Secretary Nadhim Zahawi, who joins me now. Morning, Secretary of State. What is it the government's making funding available for this morning? Good morning.
Good morning, Nick. Yes, so working with NHS England, we are making £8 million available to secondary schools, special schools, alternative provision schools, so that the administration side of the vaccination programme, we want to make sure we continue to vaccinate 12 to 15-year-olds. 50% of them have had at least one dose. They're now eligible for their second dose. Of course, 16 and 17-year-olds are eligible for their booster jab, and it's money that we essentially will give to schools to help, with the administration, so that the school teams from the NHS can go in and do their job and continue our brilliant vaccination programme. We're also announcing today, after sending out 350,000 CO2 monitors last year, that around 9,000 air purifiers will be sent out to those schools that can't mitigate in their classroom. The good news is that when, and I was criticised for this, the Labour Party said, why don't you just buy 350,000 air purifiers? I said, no, that's I'm a steward of public money here. I bought CO2 monitors, £25 million worth, sent them out to all the schools. They can then monitor their CO2 in the classroom. The data from that, and we're releasing the survey today, shows that the majority, so 94+%, can actually cope very easily without needing any air purifiers. But our modelers, and I have to tell you, I'm very proud of them because their modelers were very accurate, thought we were going to need about 8,000 air purifiers. That number's come up just a bit ahead of 8,000, so about almost 9,000, just under. So we've bought another 1,000 to take it up to 9,000, and we're sending those out to about 1,200 settings around the country so they can help with air purification where they can't mitigate for ventilation.
Which is obviously tremendous news, but you're aware how many schools there are in the United Kingdom, Secretary of State?
Yes, of course. There's 24,300 plus schools.
And you're talking
there's
about
over 300,000 classrooms. Yeah. Yes, so that's the whole point.
I was just going to say, so there's that many schools. I hadn't worked out the classrooms. I did have a number of the schools. And credit for what you've done, but we're not really covering everything here, are we? Isn't there a danger things might slip through the net, Secretary of State?
So this is why I was trying to explain it, but obviously I did a crap job of explaining it to you just now.
I'm sure I wasn't listening. I'm sure the fault lies in the recipient, I'm sure.
Right, not at all. There are 300,000 plus classrooms, right?
So what I did was... Education Secretary there, but do go on.
Forgive me. There are 300,000 plus classrooms, right? So what I did was I sent out 350,000 CO2 monitors.
Got it.
Right. That allowed us then to model and say, right,
got it.
The majority can actually ventilate easily and are doing a great job following the guidelines on ventilation.
Got it.
A very small minority, and we modelled this, which I was tongue-in-cheek saying to you, our modellers did a brilliant job.
Got it.
I'm very proud. Not all models, were as accurate, but nevertheless, my modellers did a brilliant job. They said, Secretary of State, we're going to need about 8,000. That number is now 9,000. The deadline for schools to apply was last Monday. It came in just above 8,000. So that's what we are delivering in terms of air purifiers. So if you take, it's like a funnel, right? You've got 350,000 CO2 monitors. And what it comes down to is about 9,000 air purifiers that we're getting out to those classrooms that can't easily ventilate.
Let's move to, thank you for that, Secretary. Let's move to other stories and other headlines. Front page of one newspaper, entire cabinet would back a tax hike delay. This is the proposed increase in national insurance. I stress that word again, entire cabinet. So you're part of that merry band, Secretary of State?
Well, no, because let me tell you why we are introducing national insurance contribution, right? It's really important, this. £36 billion is going to be raised by that. Now, the highest earners, and that's 14%, the highest earners will pay half of that. 36 of that contribution, the NIC contribution. The lowest paid, so 6.1 million people, the lowest paid will pay nothing. So it's as progressive as we can make it. Why is it important? Because you and I both know, we've been around politics for decades, right, that successive governments have tried to deal with this and have failed, and actually have failed the elderly, because this unsustainable system that we have at the moment has broken many a human being in old age because they can't afford the social care that they need. So this Prime Minister, again, another big decision, but he's got it right on this. The other side of that is, of course, the cost of living that we have to deal with. And we are putting £12 billion to work over this year and next year to make sure that, for example, local government is getting £500 million because they know those families that need real help with the utility bills. We're delivering that. Those who can't, who are struggling with their council tax, that's another just over 600 million.
So were there to be a delay, with you saying he's got it right on that, another decision by the PM, he'd have got it wrong. If there were to be a delay on national insurance, there won't be a delay then, Secretary of State?
I don't think we would be, doing ourselves any favours in delaying. What we need to do is make sure that we deliver that 36 billion into the social care system that this Prime Minister is determined to fix, as well as, of course, into healthcare. And it's as progressive as we can make it. As I just said, the highest paid 14% will pay half of it, and 6.1 million of the lowest paid will pay nothing for it.
Okay. Coming to another couple of matters. I know a little bit about your background. I remember you once told me how as a young boy you managed to fall over and put a spike through your leg that didn't stop bleeding. What I'm not aware of is your faith. There is a note on your profile that you are of a Muslim background, but you know necessary practice. Assuming you are, how comfortable or easy is it being someone of a Muslim background in the Conservative Party, given what Nusrat Ghani has alleged?
So I tweeted out that Nusrat is a valued colleague, an extremely effective parliamentarian, and if she makes such a serious allegation, then it's only right that this should be looked at thoroughly. The Prime Minister spoke to Nusrat last night and has asked the Cabinet Office to look at this very serious allegation. I've been in the party since the 80s. I've grown up in this party. I've been a volunteer, a activist, a councillor for 12 years in Wandsworth, a member of Parliament and minister. I have not experienced anything like that. We had an inquiry into Islamophobia conducted by Professor Singh that looked at a lot of these issues. We're overhauling our systems in the party. I'm proud of what we've done on this subject and on anti-Semitism, of course. I'm proud of what I'm doing in education on anti-Semitism as well, and making sure universities sign up to the international definition of anti-Semitism. So a lot of work has taken place, but Nusrat has made some very serious allegations. The chief whip has come out and said, look, he categorically denies this and he thinks it's defamatory. I think it's only right that the Cabinet Office look at this. In Nusrat's own statement, to be fair to her, she says it could be people who have said this who aren't even members of the Conservative Party. So there's a lot of detail that we need to uncover on this, and it's only right that the Cabinet Office take this on and investigate it swiftly.
Potentially, how ugly might this be for the Prime Minister, Mr. Zahawi?
Well, I think the Prime Minister's taken this seriously all throughout this situation. My understanding is when this arose 2 years ago, he met with Nusrat. He then wrote to her and asked her to put in a formal complaint. We now understand from her statement why she didn't do that. He's now, I think, delivered what I think is the right thing, which is the Cabinet Office, a senior civil servant looking at this. Nusrat, I urge her, and I would back her in putting her evidence forward to that inquiry, and for them to look at it swiftly. We're one team, and we need to make sure that colleagues feel safe and feel valued and appreciated. And there is no room in my party for racism, Islamophobia, anti-Semitism, none at all. It's unacceptable, and it will not happen in my party.
Last couple of questions. Noting your time spent as Vaccines Minister prior to becoming Education Secretary, it is reported that Wales could recruit NHS workers from England who lose their jobs because they refuse to be jabbed. Welsh First Minister Mark Drayford saying he would not rule out hiring unvaccinated staff from across the border. How much of a loss could that be to the NHS in England?
So I think that anyone working with the most vulnerable, and people going into hospital tend to be extremely vulnerable, have a duty of care to protect those people in their care, which is why I'm very proud that over 9 in 10 of the 1.2 million full-time equivalents in the NHS have been vaccinated. Since we announced this policy of mandatory vaccination, there was 100,000 who were still unvaccinated. That's now down to 70,000. Surgeons have to get vaccinated for hepatitis for them to practice. I think it's a duty of care issue here. Far too many families have had their loved ones infected in hospital with COVID. So I think it's really important that we continue on this drive, and I hope those numbers reduce even further. And then the same has happened with adult social care, where we put additional support for the system to cope with this.
And last question on vaccines. How wise or otherwise is it for the BBC Question Time show to have a special on those who are not vaccinated and invite them into the studio for that special next month in February? Is that all right decision by the BBC?
Well, I hope all those who are vaccine hesitant, I think if that's what they mean, then that's actually a good thing, because you can share the evidence, you can have a proper debate. I will have, I hope, experts in the panel, people like Jonathan Van Tam or Chris Whitty or June Rain or Professor Wei Shen. These are, we are blessed with the world's experts on vaccine. We've administered, 36 million boosters. On top of the billions of vaccines that have been administered around the world, this is a very safe vaccine. We know
but people
that
fear
90%.
it could underscore the claims Bill Gates is, this nonsensical claims that it's all a global plot. Bill Gates is trying to control us. If it were not to be handled correctly, Secretary of State, would you agree?
Well, which is why I said it's the vaccine hesitant, not the anti-vaxxers who basically deal in conspiracy theories and this mad mumbo jumbo, as the Prime Minister called it. I hope they don't go in that direction to the BBC.
So it needs a JVT, it needs a Chris, it needs a Nadhim Zahawi, and you are a friend to that show. It needs someone like you on the show.
Just to remind your listeners, 90% of those in ICU fighting for their lives are unvaccinated. That is just heartbreaking. And I hope those people who are hesitant, who will go now and get their vaccination, because it is not too late.
I'm grateful as ever for your time. Good luck with that initiative in our classrooms. Nadhim Zahawi, Education Secretary, appearing here on LBC, where at 2 minutes after 8 news is next.
On your radio, on Global Player, and
Play LBC.
leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom, new allegations of Islamophobia in the Conservative Party will be investigated by the Cabinet Office.